Winnicina. Meonit or a napne when this illness, this pandemic is bad. You know, it's nice, like I said, the Madagwin Don Ekenomage. I'm glad to be teaching some language today. So let me give you this sheet here. We've been looking at some verbs and some conjugations. Let's see here. Yesterday I talked a little bit about how certain verbs that start with like BM, like Bamadze or Bakadeh, or I didn't really use those verbs, but Kukanage. Anybody recognize any of these verbs? You may not have seen them in this form. Bamadze is like, is it in like Minop Madzewin? Live, to be alive. Bakadeh. Seems backwards on here to me, but I guess it's my perception. It's the right way for them. So Bakadeh, you've heard it as Buckday, probably. Like Buckday. Hungry. Yep. Pucknage, you might have heard Pucknage. The Pucknage. Hey, the Pucknage, you bet Tadi Gumgo. I won over there at the casino. Win. Let me show you one more here. Bamosa. What's Bamosa? To walk, because you're moseying along. You know, Bamosa. Moseying along, okay? And each of these ones that I wrote up here, I wrote them in their third person, he or she form. Okay, and that's how you're going to find most verbs. Like in our dictionary, they're going to be in this form right here. Okay, so yesterday I was showing you a little bit how if you have like two consonants and a vowel, particularly with these B's and P's type ones, and even this BM one, they do a little change if you don't use the long form. Okay, the long form is the neda, geda. Let me see if they can see that. Well, I'm standing in front of it, they can't. Well, that marker is not that good. Actually, I can't tell where I'm looking. Okay, I can't tell. Okay, I might pick it up a marker. Marker is not doing it today. Let's try a different one. That one is definitely not. We're going back to that one. Okay, it's a learning process with these markers. I haven't used markers for a long time. Some of my markers have dried out. So neda, geda, and then nothing on it, or you can put a wood down if you want. Then neda and men, geda and men, geda and m, and then nothing on it. You go like a K. Okay, so if I put this with Bamose, okay, I want to say I'm walking. I can say Neda Bamose. Okay. I am walking. Present tense. Gede Bamose. You are walking. Gede Bamose. And then just Bamose by itself, or some people put that wood on there, but it's not really necessary. Bamose is he or she is walking. Nede Bamose would be what? Yeah, so we, but not you. So we, I always write it as we minus you are walking. So you're telling that other person they're not coming. Like if I was saying, hey, you know, Nida Jiaman, Dawao Gumgo, we're going to the store, and I was talking to you, you know, you're not invited. So it's real direct. Our language is not beat around the bush. It doesn't tell you like, oh, you might kind of go. Can I go? Like in English, if I said, hey, we're going to the store, you'd have to turn around and ask me, oh, we are? Oh, no. We're going to the store. Maybe motion with my hand. No, we're going to the store. I don't know if you can hear me okay over there. I'm afraid I'm in the.
Yeah, I'm
Can you
good.
hear?
I'm good.
Okay, I'm trying because it's a little bit different. I apologize. The board's a little jinky and it's got a little bit of reflection going, but I'm gonna have to do it in this classroom on Thursdays because they have things going on in the long room. If they don't have the long room, we can do it in there. It's even a little easier for folks online, and we can type it on the keyboard. But get the most salmon. So it'd be we all are walking. Get the most some. You all. Don't forget you all. And then Bamosa. That's the one you were looking for today. Are walking. Now, this is what I'm trying to explain to you is why we use this long form and why some people prefer the long form a lot of times on certain verbs is this right here. You do this and it's not going to do anything funny at the front. If you don't use this long form, it is going to do something here. Let me see if I'm in the frame still. I'm going to go ahead and erase these real quick.
Is there an extra sheet for today?
Yes, I say I'm just working on the same verbs. Yeah. Yeah. So we didn't get near through all the ones that I had. I was like, I wrote too much down. So we may be working off this, but we're going to do a little bit of everything in this class. My intention is to spend the last 30 minutes just talking in the language so you guys can hear the language. I'm not going to force you guys to talk if you don't want to. If you want to, cool, that's fine too. Last time what I did was I talked and then I would translate. So I would say something, and then I would translate it, Bodewad meme, mina yan kanotage yan chamokman mo. And I'd say it in Parwami, then I'd translate it in English. But I try to do it a little slower so it gives you a chance to maybe kind of hear it, maybe see if you can recognize and kind of attune your ear to it. And then eventually, as we get more comfortable, or as you feel comfortable, you're welcome to engage back and forth with me. I'll be happy to, we can try that out. And it's just a comfort level. I want you guys to feel comfortable. We're in a comfortable, friendly, safe environment. So that's what I'm trying to create. So that's what I like. I like friendly, comfortable, safe environment. So if you don't have the long form, it goes like this. It goes nebumse. It moves over. And then it goes gebumse. You walk, and then it's still bamose. And then it's nebum salmon. Would be we but not you are walking. Gebum salmon. We all are walking. Gebum some. You all are walking, and then back to bamosa. And then bamosa. They are walking. So as you can see, it's a little bit different. It moves over, and you kind of have to know how it does that unless you use the long form. So I guess the note of caution here for you is as you get better, you may prefer using this form. Like myself, I like using this form. But as you're maybe starting out, you might feel more comfortable with the long form just to keep it simpler for yourself in case you're not certain if it does that or not. The good news is this only happens in the present tense. Good idea. Thank you very much. Yeah, that eraser didn't do very well. I appreciate it. It was like, eh. So this is the present. Now in the future and the past, this doesn't matter. It's going to stay like this. Okay. You don't have to worry about any of this change in the future or the past. If you said, I'm going to go for a walk or I went for a walk, it stays in the mosa. So it's only in the present tense that you have this happen. And again, it's the ones that do this, they're usually ones that have like two consonants and then a vowel. And it tends to be like B's and P's. Trying to think of some others that do it. But B's and P's are real common. BM, I guess. BM. Those are ones you see that happen on. But now let me show you the past and future, okay? I'll do it over here. And then we'll make some sentences so we can have some sentences. That's not just conjugating, because I know conjugating. Don't get me wrong. I know conjugating can be boring. But if you learn how to conjugate in Potawatomi, you can say just like almost anything you want within reason. You can really talk a lot of Potawatomi, just getting your base conjugation, these two, this type down, and then the conjunctive. We'll be spitting out all kinds of things in Potawatomi before you know it. Or possibly dreaming in Potawatomi, or should use the stuff you brought, that would be good. There we go. Just need to take off. So to put it into the past, I'm gonna start by putting it in the past. I really just gotta take this little DE off. And instead of that, I'm gonna put, does anybody happen to know what the past tense marker is? You may remember from E, yep. Hopefully it'll take, so. I'll change see if I can change colors here. I have one that actually will. Just to show the difference. Yeah, it works. So Nagib Mose, and you kind of flow into this B. Now, if you were to say Nagib Mose, I'd understand you. The difference between saying Nagib Mose and Nagib Mose is probably going to be like somebody that recognizes, oh, okay, yeah. They're going to understand you, but if you want to sound crisp, you want to sound good, you want to kind of flow into it. Nagib Mose, Nagib Mose. If this little mark between it, the only reason we use this, and I've been using this for as long as I've been teaching Potawatomi, and people were using it with me before that when I was learning Potawatomi. It just, that little separation, it just shows you, kind of gets it all where you can see it all. Like here's the verb, it just kind of breaks it apart, especially if it's a big verb. Like if it's the verb like that. Even there, I couldn't help myself, but leave a little space because I'm used to it. But if I push that all together, it looks like a lot. You're like, oh my God, what is all that? That's one word, one sentence. So what you have here is, I did, Nagi, break, boke, kade, my leg, shin, falling. So I fell and broke my leg. But that's really just one word. I could have just slammed it all right up to it. But even me, I can't help it. I can't leave the space. I'm just so used to it. But that's why I usually put the little marker just so you can see it that way. It's easier. Anyway, so Gagib Mose, you're walking. Gib Mose, he or she is walking. Gib Mose. Nagib Mosemen, we but not you. Gagib Mosemen, we all, but not you, or not we all are, walked. This is the past. Gagib Mosem, you all walked. Gib Mosek, they walked. Okay, so Nagib Mose, I walked. Gib Mose, you walked. Gib Mose, he or she walked. Now, how do we know if it's he or she? It's in context. A lot of our language is in context. You know, it depends who you're talking about. If you've been talking about your brother this whole time, and suddenly you're like, oh, Gib Mose, Iba, Dawao Gumgok, he walked over there to the store. Well, we know you're talking about him because that's what you've been talking about the whole time. You didn't just suddenly go, oh, well, she. I mean, unless you want to look at it from, I know we're big on, in a way though, our language is kind of like, you know, people talk about like non-binary and stuff like that. Like people say I'm either masculine or feminine. Well, our language technically, it acts that way. It's either he or she. So we're already in that kind of mental mindset where it doesn't matter to us. Which I think is kind of refreshing when you think about it, that today's society wants to think in those terms, but we've already resolved it thousands of years ago. So about time they caught up. Maybe they'll catch up on some other stuff too. Gib Mosemen, we all again walked. Gib Mosem, you all walked. Gib Mosek, they walked. So simple enough, I guess. You just put the G. The thing you have to remember is it's got to be in between. So like if you have an N or a G here at the front, it's got to be inside of it. Here you don't have anything on the verb, so it can be right there. I mean, you could put a W here if you wanted, but it's not really necessary. I mean, occasionally I'll see people do that. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's unnecessary. I'm a big believer if it's unnecessary, I don't really want to have to add extra unnecessary things. There's enough necessary things in the language that you definitely have to have in there that, yeah, you might as well just keep it simple. Keep it simple. So this is, again, this no longer means I am walking the present. This would be the past tense. So it's I'm just not gonna change the English for you, okay? It's, I did walk, gib mose, gib mose, you did walk, gib mose, he or she walked, gib mose men, we but not you walked, gib mose men, we all walked, gib mose, you all walked, gib mose, they walked. Okay. So let's show and this is in what's called the independent form. This form here, and there's 7 types, it's I, he, or I, you, he, she, we, but not you, we all, you all, they. There's 7 in this type, okay? And this is called a VAI verb, if you want to get real technical about it. And what that means is an animate intransitive verb. Don't get caught up on that, don't worry about that. But if you want to find a whole list of these type of verbs, there's actually tags in our dictionary that say like VAI verbs. You can find just whole lists of them that conjugate out, so they're called VAIs. And there's 4 main types of verbs in our language. That's one thing that throws people a little bit from English, because in English, if we said something, in fact, I had a guy that today asked me a question about a word, and it fits exactly what I'm talking about here. Is he was talking about the word for to eat fish eggs. Okay, well, fish eggs are wok, is what they are in Potawatomi. Wok is the word for a fish egg. Wok ok are fish eggs, plural. So it's an animate word. Okay, but he was trying to use the verb mejan, which means to eat it. In Potawatomi, if you're talking about eating something that's animate, you have to use mawa, completely different verb. That's something that's really different from English, because in English we eat, doesn't matter. Eat, I just say eat. But in Potawatomi, we've got a base word, which is withna, just means eat. But that's when you're not really talking about what you're eating. You're just saying like, hey, do you want to eat? Or did you already eat? Did you already eat? Or maybe you want to say, hey, what are you eating today? What did you eat today? What did you eat today? Or what are you going to eat for lunch? What are you going to eat for lunch? Sorry, I paused because there's 2 ways I could have done that. I could have combined it to make it a verb. And I was like thinking in my head, I better do it the simpler way. Sorry, my fault. Sometimes you overthink. So, but anyway, and so there's that. But once you start talking about like, hey, I'm cooking carrots. Well, now you have to know that carrots are inanimate. Or if you say I'm eating carrots, I'm flipping verbs. You're eating carrots, so it's mejan. I'm eating it, something inanimate. But if I'm eating potatoes, they're animate. You got to change the verb.
If you don't know if they're animate or inanimate.
That is an excellent question, actually. You just go with it. And that's what holds some people back, honestly, is that right, that exact statement right there. I'm glad you asked that question, because if you don't know, you just go with it, And as you learn that it's animate, then you change it. Because if you were to use the inanimate form with somebody that speaks Potawatomi, they're going to know what you're saying. That's my 100% suggestion, because I'm a big believer. We have to use the language. Whatever you learn, you got to use it. We got to use the language. And if you're constantly kind of being held back thinking, oh, I wonder if I conjugate that right, is that right? It's going to stop you. That is actually one of the biggest problems I think a lot of adult learners have, is that, and they always say kids learn languages really easy. Yes and no. I could agree to that. But you know why they learn language really easy? Is because they don't care what anybody thinks. They have no hang-ups. They're like, oh, cat dog went to the store. Oh, you mean the dog and cat went to the store? Yeah. Oh, ate green bean. Like what? Oh, they ate some green. They don't care. And they're just playing it out, using it, and then they're naturally getting corrected along the way. Like, oh, it's beans. Oh, okay, cool. But it doesn't like bother. As adult learners, we have to kind of shed that worry. And that's why I say it's a safe, friendly environment here. I want everybody to feel that way. I want you to feel that you can say it, you can slaughter. It's your language. We can slaughter it any way we want. We don't want to slaughter it, but hey, it's going to happen. If you learn French, you're not going to walk into a French class, walk out the next day and be like, oh, je pense donc je suis. That's the only phrase I can think of. I took some French, means I think they're where I am, but anyways, so yeah. But what you're saying there is you just you figure them out. Animacy and intimacy can be very complicated, especially with food. Because some things are cut and dry. They're easy. one way to know something's inanimate is if it ends in a G-E-N or a W-E-N, it's inanimate. So, for example, if you see a word like, if I pick the right, go back to my other one, let's look dry. Tasman. Good one. Tasman. What is a tasman? Closet or a cabinet. But what's really beautiful about our language is the verb is right there. It's all right there. Tazo means to store or put things up. If you were to take this verb and change it into a place like a location, Tazal Gamak, this could be like, I've seen this used for a pawn shop or like a storage thing. But here, Tazwin, you're just saying that the place where things are stored. It could be a closet, it could be a cupboard, it could be a shed. You could say Zagach Tazwin, make real specific that you're talking about outdoors. All that information is right there. But again, even a verb as complicated as or as long as waskoninjigan. I like this verb myself. I like the way it rolls off my tongue. Waskoninjigan. At first, it's intimidating. You're like, my God, it's a long word. Waskoninjigan. Waskoninjigan. I just like the way it rolls. Waskoninjigan. When you look at it, you're like, oh, okay. Here's this gen at the end. That gen kind of means it's a thing. Waskoninjigan is to shine light. But you can get in there deeper and you can start breaking it out even more. Waskon just being like a little bit of light. You know, but that jigay, or even part of the gay that's in here, you can even say it's like the action that's happening. Waskoninjigan. But again, you know it's inanimate because it ends in gun or it ends in win. Dope win. Pretty common word. What's a dope win? A table. Table. Well, it ends in win, so it's definitely inanimate. Dope o means to place food on something. It's the verb to place food on something. So I always joke with people, if you don't eat at your kitchen table, is it really a table? Is it really a table or is it something else? It's like a storage unit. But dopo means to eat on something. Dopo. So the verbs are inside of all these words, and that's what's really amazing about our language too. But again, if they end in one or again, inanimate. I went on a tangent there, I apologize. I have a tendency to do that from time to time. But the original question was an excellent question. I appreciate it. So as you're learning if things are inanimate or animate, just go with your gut. I would say that most foods, if you haven't heard them being animate, I would just treat them as inanimate myself. That's what I would do. I'd just be like, until I knew otherwise, I'd be like, inanimate. But when you learn, like, because there's certain ones like corn is animate, potatoes are animate. You know, you'll pick up different ones that are animate, and you'll remember that. And usually all it takes is just maybe like, oh, okay. So anyway, that's my spiel on that. Future tense, that's where I was heading next. Let me talk about the future. So all you gotta do is add this "gi" in here to be the past. Now to say it in the future, instead of a "gi," we're gonna add a what? A "we." Yeah. Jackpot. I'm gonna be real lazy here. I'm gonna keep that. Hopefully it won't. I'll get rid of enough of the water that it won't do that to you. Yeah, appreciate these, by the way, Paul. Neat wedge. That thing was not functioning. Yeah, for real. You've been doing it longer than me. Well, I can't do that. It's now that way. So the "we" is the future. Maybe I should have took it out. Okay, so Nawib, again, you kind of flow into that "be." Nawib Mose, I'm going to walk, or I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to walk. Nawib Mose. Maybe somebody saying, hey, you want to ride? Chacho. Nawib Mose, I'm going to walk. Gawib Mose, you're going to walk. Gawib Mose. Weeb Mose, he or she is going to walk. The Weeb Mose men, we but not you, are going to walk. The Weeb Mose men, we all are going to walk. The Weeb Mosem, you all are going to walk. Weeb Mosek, they are going to walk. So this is the future, that "we." So again, that "we" is your future indicator. And the GE. Three pins. That was your past. Pretty simple, pretty easy. And this whole form is called the independent form. Now, there is one other form that you're going to see that we use for a lot of our question words when we're asking more complicated questions, and that's called the conjunct. Okay, and that's what we're going to step into now.
So you can plug in with the in plug in any word after that.
Oh, you mean right here?
Yeah.
I mean, in these VAIs for the most part. I mean, there's some that are going to operate a little differently, but
Sure.
if you look in the dictionary, I've got ones that are called normal.
Right.
They'll all punch through there. Just now, yesterday we did talk a little bit about a couple of changes that a couple of them make, and we might go over that again since Pam was there for that. Just show. I think we went through Zagzag
You're talking about yesterday, you're talking about Monday class?
Monday, yeah, not yesterday, Monday. I meant.
Okay, so I thought you were doing the same class too.
I'm kind of. I mean,
What time's the Monday class? again?
1 o'clock, 1 to 2:30. Yeah. I'm not. I want it to be where you won't miss out. I mean, but I'm
Are you
re-going.
recording them?
I am recording them, so
Okay.
they'll be posted eventually. I'm trying to figure out where when I did with my recording last time, so
Okay.
it should be there. But yeah, I'll make sure that you get those. The only thing that we did a little bit of conjugations. We didn't get in the past or the future. We did. There's a couple of verbs that flip.
Yeah.
They at the end when they ended in ze in the first person, they flip. Like you guys remember, we had like bamadze, which is a verb to live. But if you say nidibamadas, I'm living, nidibamadas, you're living, etc. And then like zagzag is a verb to be scared.
Yeah.
And in the first person, it's
I was
the
gonna say,
zagas.
the verbs are-
ZE verbs were there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is most of the general AI verbs will fit in here, but you got a couple that do different things. If they start with a W or a Y, that'll disappear. I haven't gotten to that yet. If they end in ZE, it'll flip in the first and second person. We talked about that last time. And then there's a couple other small ones that do some of the regular stuff, but for the most part, you get this pattern down, you're gold. This pattern here, and this next pattern I'm going to show you, the conjunct pattern, you'll be able to say all kinds of things in the language. Okay. And please stop me as we're going along. Please feel free to ask any questions you have. I may drift into the distance if you have to think of me, but hey, that's okay. Because the reality is, when you have a question, this is what I found over the years, is usually the person next to you has the same question, or maybe the person 2 seats over has the same question. Maybe they just don't want to ask it. And you ask it, they're like, oh, I'm glad I asked that question. So that's at least what I've found over the years. So definitely don't be afraid to ask any question you want. Doesn't mean I have the answer, but I certainly will try to answer you. I have all the answers. Okay. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is the conjunct. So this is the independent form. That is not the right one. That one's done. Like I said, a few of these have been setting up here a while. That one is not going to function whatsoever. Let's try this one here. Oh, that red shows up. I might bring it a little. I can bring this a little closer.
Or higher, like it's hard to see.
Let me try something here real quick. Any better? Well, like I said, I'll get it better next time. I apologize. It's a process. We were in the other room, and when I was doing it off the keyboard, it's easier. But okay, the conjunct. So, see if I recognize this. We'll do commodity. I like commodity. Majiyan, Majiyin, Majit, Majiyak, Majigo, Majiyuk. You could also say yak, and Majiwat. Okay, Maji is the verb to leave. Okay, in case y'all haven't known that, didn't know that. It's kind of my go-to verb. I like that verb. For one, it doesn't do anything weird. And it's a functional verb, Maji. So, Majiyan. This is the conjunct again. So, what is the difference between these two? Versus the independent versus the conjunct. Usually, if somebody's asking a who, what, when, where type question, if I'm asking you why you're leaving, who's leaving, where they went, I'm asking for more information, I'm going to have to use this conjunct form. Okay. Oftentimes, too, is when the second verb in a sentence, a lot of times will fall into the conjunct. So if you have multiple verbs being used, a lot of times you'll fall into the conjunct. I say a lot of times because there's speakers that defy that rule sometimes. So it's dependable. It depends sometimes, but definitely when you're asking who, what, when, where questions, you use this. So if I'm asking, why Nijawi Maji, why is she leaving? It's going to be in the conjunct. Again, like if you're saying what, why, how, who, if you want to ask us, and usually if somebody asks you a question in the conjunct, a lot of times the answer is going to be in the independent. You'll answer them in this form. You don't come back and go, you wouldn't use it like at the front of a sentence usually. You'd be like, Maji, I'm leaving. You'd say, Namaji, I'm leaving. So they ask the question in this one, you're getting an answer in this one. This other form also is you use this to ask simple questions. And what I mean by simple questions is who, what, or not who, what, when, where's, but like, are you hungry? Gebakte ne. And with these simple questions, you'll usually see that ne. Okay. So like if I said, Gewib mose ne, are you going to? Gewib mose ne, are you going to? The ne is not needed over here. You don't need it in the conjunct questions because you have a question word that's going to be used over here. Okay. And I'll put some of these question words up here real quick. Wekneja. Anybody know what that is? What? That's a good answer. Yes. I like that. Call it again. Call it again. I know what that is. Am I going to tell you? But I know what it is. It's okay. Hey, as long as you know that you know, that's good. Yeah.
It's just good I've heard this in many years.
That is good that you've heard them. Nipija. This is the one that always seems to get people. Is these next? Is Nipija and Nijapi? I think it's because they're kind of similar. So you got Nipija is where, and then Nijapi is when. These two are easy to flip. Like I've heard people multiple times flip these. And then you also have Nija. Now, Nija is interesting because it means how, but it can also mean what. So you can use it instead of like Nija. And then you got like Nijetso. Nijetso. Anybody know that one? How much or how many? How many? And you got Nijawi. Why? And there is another variation. People will use they use like Nija Wench for why, but Nijawi, why, Nija Ye, which. Okay. I guess Nija Ye, which, Nija we, why, Wek Nija, what, when Nija, who, Nipija, where, Nija P, when, Nija, how or what, Nijet, so, how much or how many. These are also very fundamental. If you can memorize these, get yourself some cards, really flip through them, really memorize these. they will serve you extremely well, because what happens a lot of times is we get caught on words. When somebody asks you, if I said, Weknija Dashitchkayan Nago, if you know that Weknija is what, you immediately register that. Like, okay, Weknija is what? And you can kind of focus in on what else is being said. Like, so Weknija Dashitchkayan Nago. Weknija Dashitchkayan Nago. So you're hearing more of it. Now you're hearing maybe Nago. It's the past. You heard maybe the Ga is the past for this, which I haven't explained yet. Weknija Gajitchkayan Nago. Now maybe you can focus in on what the ending is. I said yin on the verb, so it's you I'm talking about. Weknija Gajitchkayan Nago. Weknija Gajitchkayan. Okay, you know your endings real well, and you know your question words, so you're like, okay, what was, then you can focus on what's the verb. Then it's money. You just got to figure out what the verb was. The verb is jetchke, the verb to do something. So what did you do yesterday? And so if you can get those what, who, what, when, where question words down, and you can get your endings or your fronts on the other ones, get those down, then it's just a matter of figuring out what the verb is. And the beautiful thing about that is if you're talking a little bit more than just like one or two words, a lot of times it comes through in context. Like if I've started talking about hunting or going out in the woods, I went out in the woods, blah, blah, and you understood all that. And then I'm like, oh, and then I saw a deer. Oh, okay. I didn't recognize it, but he must be talking about seeing the deer because I hear deer. I recognize that. He's in the woods. It makes logical sense. He didn't see like a floating ship. He could have. But you know what I mean? So in the context, a lot of times it'll flush it out. But the other neat thing about our language, in my opinion, is because our language is so descriptive and you can kind of take apart the words and things like that. We're going to get into that in this class too. We're going to break apart words and see how they work out. I think you guys will enjoy that. Because of that, because our language didn't borrow a lot of words, you can break things down literally, and you can hear a word you've never heard in your life, but you can figure out what it means. You could never have heard that word, but if you've heard ones that were like it, you can be like, oh, okay, they mean da-da-da. I'll show you a great example of that here in just a second. I always like to do it with Joanne, but y'all have heard about Joanne. Joanne is a great one. And Joanne, yeah. Mok Joanne, Gwek Joanne, Nisa Joanne. But you can really do it with just a ton of verbs. The other neat thing about that is because you can break words apart like that is it's really simple to create a word for something like that, to describe something you've never heard or had. People are always asking me, oh, how do we have a word for TV, or how do we have a word for car? How does any language have a word? They coin a word for it, but ours, we can actually describe what's happening, And sometimes there's two ways that kind of words usually come about. The most common are either words get kind of moved into the future. So like you might have an older word, maybe for a wagon, and now we don't really roll around wagons very often. So now it's a car. But if you go to the root of that word, dabian, you're actually talking about dragging something. Well, what did we use before we had wagons? Well, we hooked those, I always call them traverses. That's not the word in English. I don't know what is it? Travelway? Travoy, that's it. I always say the wrong word. I always call it traverse. But then again, I'm not really too concerned about as long as you'll figure out what I'm talking about. So travoy, where you hook like the two like branches or sticks to like a horse or maybe even to a dog, and then you put your belongings, you put stuff on, you put your belongings, and you kind of drag your belongings on. So that's where that word originally came from. Obviously, we're not rolling around with travois anymore, or if we are, we're not getting very far today. But so that word just kind of got moved up in time, and now it's the word for car. So that's one way words develop. Another way is you take apart the word and you can look at it. You can say all kinds of things. Well, since I've done here one, I'll do a different one. I'll use a napne. It's that kind of time of year. So we got napne. When you see this N on the front, it kind of just means a particular way. It's a particular sickness. It's an illness. Napne. So it's a sickness, okay? You can say all kinds. Ones that are coming to my mind are not really appropriate ones. I got to think these out here. You could say like con apne. So con is a bone. So bone sickness, arthritis. So he or she has arthritis. You could say de. Let's see, okay. This one here is going to take a W. Dewapne. So day is your what? Like Dewagen, your heart. So heart disease. Right. You could just keep creating words talking about this one because it ends in E and the opne is the part you have to put a W between it. So it ends up walking. You can say where wapne. You can say like a girl crazy. If you got like a teenager, it's always not like a girlfriend, girl. You could do the same thing with a guy. You could say like she's crazy after guys. So like you could go on and on. You could say like there's words for like any body part that you have an ailment that's like a lingering type ailment. You could use this opne to describe it like that. You could make a list of like 70, 80 words. And because you understand that the opne part is talking about sickness, you can just build off of it and keep building and building and building. And go on and on and on. But a funner one is actually Juwan. I like to use Juwan because I enjoy that word. That word has a nice flow to it. Plus, there's some ladies that have that as a name, that have a Juwan type name, a water name. It makes a lot of sense because I mean, water is the water ceremony, is a woman's ceremony. They say that the earth, the lifeblood of Mother Earth is the water. What do you think this one means? Oops. We'll leave it up there for a minute. So, Mokjuan. Mok has to do with something kind of emerging or coming visible away. So it's that bubbling up. It's that water kind of bubbling up. Mokjuan. You said Gwekjuan. Gwek has to do with something turning direction. So Gwekjuan would be like water turning direction. So it's going like a different way now. Or maybe it's like when you have the big San Andreas earthquake, they said that the Mississippi, was the Missouri, one of them turned and went the other direction. Gwekjuan. You can say Nisajuan. Nisa has to do with going down, you know, so it's water that's flowing down. Some people will use this for a waterfall, but it could even be more of a gradual kind of coming down. It depends what kind of waterfall we're talking about. I mean, why describe it on such a simplistic term like we do in English? Oh, it's a waterfall. Yeah, but not all waterfalls are created equal. Come on now. You know, or you could have a Gishk Juan. That Gishk has to do with cutting. So it's the water just kind of cuts off and drops. This would be more like a real abrupt kind of waterfall. Gishk Juan. Sanachuan. What is a sun?
Rock.
A rock. So it's talking about that water flowing over those rocks. And it's describing that kind of that white caps that you see. You know, when you think about it, it's just kind of going over the rocks and those white caps are appearing. Sanajuan. So you could describe, you could say in English, you could call it like almost like rapids, but it doesn't really do it justice. You know what I mean? Because there's so much more information in there when you talk about it. And that's what's hard sometimes with dictionaries is that's why we have a place where you put a literal meaning for words, because you get into the literal meaning, there's so much more depth a lot of times behind that, or cultural information that's part of the word that you wouldn't know. But this mokjuan, you know, you can say mokse olgizes. The sun appears or rises. You know, the may is in like that word bemose, when we walk. So remember, bemose is literally walking by. That's what that BM is really saying. BME, that's like walking by. So beme, it's water flowing by. Because I could do the same thing with bemose, and I could show you that as well here. So bemose was to walk, right? Numse is to walk away. Okay. Huecose, to turn and walk like walk off. So walk like in a different direction. Huecose. I mean, walk through. like through something, maybe, I don't know, a bubble, whatever, a wall. I mean, you tell me. We'll say. But that job, again, you start to understand these parts of these words. Jabweta or Japweta is the sound of thunder. It's an old family name down here. It's that sound of thunder breaking through. It's piercing through. Job, that way is that sound. Jabwetuk is a sound piercing through. This job or job is talking about going through. If you say japkawus, that's something going through too. That's diarrhea. It's busting through. It's not the kind of thing you want to happen, but japkawus. That's what that is. Japkawze is the verb have diarrhea. Jabwi, it means to survive or to make it through. You made it through, you survived. Jabn again is a needle. A needle is a thing that goes through. A lot doesn't do with a B, but it doesn't matter. Same thing, B or P. Jabn again is a needle. Again, it goes through. But that's the thing about our language. You can just take words and just build off of words. And we'll definitely have an entire class where we talk about breaking words apart. But I just wanted to kind of get your feet wet a little bit with it and just kind of expose you to it a little bit. But again, like I could show you words like there's words for like wind flowing, for example. And you could use this gwek here. You could say gwek on wit would be wind turn direction. Excuse me, gwek on mit. That's wind turning direction. You said wiskan met. Wisk has to do with like strength or strong. Wisk on met. It's like a strong wind. You know, nok on met would be like a soft wind, like a real gentle breeze. Nok is soft. And like I said, you can, and then once you understand these parts, you're just like, oh, onmet, that's talking about wind. You know, the jawin is talking about water. Then you hear a word you've never heard in your life, and you're like, oh, well, I know that gishkaton, for example, means to cut it. Gishkaton means to cut it. I hear gishkjawin, so it's water that cuts and drops. Quedjawin, water going up. Probably not as common, but I guess it does flow up sometimes. Quedjawin. But then you can start hearing that in other things, like Quedakik is a hill. You hear the qued. Quedjigan, it's on top of. Or quedjigan. Quedasiwagan is a ladder. Something quedasi, you're climbing up. You know, that's why it's really amusing, because if you talk about an elevator or an escalator, you can talk about that, but it depends. Is it going up or going down? It's a different way of saying it. It would change, because obviously if you're going up it, it's going to have that quay or that quedge on it, and if you're going down, it's going to have that nisa on it. So we're very descriptive about how we talk. And that's why, like I said, when people ask me how to translate something, sometimes I have to be like, well, what do you mean? Well, what do you mean? And it sounds kind of silly in English, because I know basically what they mean, but I'm not in their head. I can't perceive exactly how they're seeing it. Then they explain it to you. It's like, well, that's not what I was thinking at all. So I'm glad you kind of laid that out for me. Or sometimes I have to go back and look at the English root for a word to understand what they're really trying to say. Because obviously if somebody's saying like cats and dogs, I use that as an example all the time. It's raining cats and dogs. They obviously don't mean there's cats and dogs. We can say there's cats and dogs falling out of the sky, but dear goodness gracious, if that's happening, we got bigger problems. Dogs and cats flying out of the sky. But they really mean it's a downpour. It's a downpour. There's another one like Z has to do with pouring. And bisa, B has to do a lot of times with water, like beef. Jobiege or Jobier. That's drunk, but it has liquid involved in it. But you know, wind bisa, that drizzle or that light rain, you know, all of these have that element. And then Zieg has to do with pouring. If I say Zieg don, it'd be like pour it. Pour me a cup, you know. We Zieg don wish kabago. I'm gonna pour some pop. So okay, so we're about ready. We're good. We're about to the point where I want to do a little more talking in the language. Enough of this chimokman mowing. But I think I've showed you a little bit. So this is kind of what you can expect going forward. What I intend to do with this particular class is I want to try to take you guys a little further down the road. I want you to understand how to conjugate. So we're going to kind of hammer on these conjugations. We're also going to do some stories in the language. We're going to do a lot more sentences. I wanted to get the conjugations out of the way first, and then we can we can then do like full scale sentences and just little thoughts and phrases and things like that. But I also want to make sure that we're talking the language as well. Either you can repeat what I say, or you're at least listening to it. We have to work on getting our ears kind of accustomed to hearing the language because we haven't heard it. I mean, if you don't hear a word ever, and suddenly somebody busts out with a word, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I know that word, but maybe it doesn't jump out at you because maybe it's just something real obscure like Miyabietis. I'm lazy or something. You're like, I've never heard that one. Okay. Or you can always tell somebody, Mina Kadon. Say it again. Mina Kadon. Or another favorite that you're going to want is Noch Badan Gadona. Noch Badan Gadona. Take it easy. Slow down. Noch Badan Gadona. Take it easy. Slow down a little bit. So you may want to tell me that a bunch. But that's the thing about, I mean, I don't mind teaching like the beginner classes. I've taught a lot of them. But the problem that you sometimes get with that is people have their own definition of what they believe a beginner class is. For some people, it's 5 words and done. For others, it might be no conjugations. For others, it might, so for other people, it might be full out immersion. But most people, it isn't going to be that way. So for some people, it scares them off. If you give them like, if I just, Chonedwin Desin, Chimokman Moen, Megwajna. I'm not going to talk any more English. If I just start talking English, start talking Potawatomi, most people are going to be like, oh, I'm out of here. Well, I did not sign up for this. I thought this was beginner, But it's all relative. It's a process. As long as you keep with the language, Megwa Ebisidoyan or the Bodewad Mimwan, Megwa Waja and Mistatoyan. The more that you hear the language, the more you're going to understand it. Zenegit nan godigan netum eweb kindashin what is eshbon. It's hard sometimes when you first start learning the language. Nesja gishpen gakindashin megwajana mina awaudoyen ebisidoyen ekikdoyen megwa waja emikwindaman. So the more that you hear it, the more that you study it, the more that you read it, the more that you utilize it, you're going to start to remember. You're going to start to remember these things. Mikwindan is the verb to remember, and it's a process. It takes time. Gnowesh bawamshe nui bodewad mim anake nui mino bodewad mim. It's going to take a little while for you to talk Potawatomi, to talk good Potawatomi. Gago anshit gakan. Don't become discouraged. Mikwindamak Jayak Getsim Najuk Kikto out of the Bodewad Mimwan. Remember that long ago, all of your ancestors spoke the language. They spoke it, and Getsim Najuk Ebisidowat Gishpan Eyoyak or the Bodewad. Our ancestors, they can hear us when we speak this language. Gishpan edapnian on it sema mina emadmoyan Getsim Najuk mina minadok mina mamogosnan Jayak ebisidowat enishna bemoyan. And when you take some tobacco and you say a prayer in your language, your ancestors and the spirit and the creator, they hear you using that language. And Winak Shana, Namiquindan, Benowi, Egin Indaman, Bodewad mi Yaoyan, Nesja Bois Nishna Bemoyan. So a long time ago, I remember thinking to myself and saying, I'm Potawatomi, but I don't speak my language, and Ntagas Bagaji, Bois Nishna Bemoyan. I was a little bit sad that I couldn't speak any of our language. And so, Nedwindan, Eweb Kindashan, Odazeshmon, Eweb Bodewad Mimoyan. So I started learning this language and started speaking some of it. And, Gom, Wegwin Dek Nedwindaman, Nishna Bemoyan. So today, whatever I want to say in our language, pretty much I can say it. I mean, within reason. I mean, I like McDonald's, and some things are not worth translating. You know what I mean? They really aren't. Like, sure, a word for the internet's worth translating. There's the internet all around us, and words for computers and TVs. You have to decide, Abdak, Gishkaton, Gishpin, Jash Kedwinin, Nedwindaman, Eyan Kanotage. You have to decide if you want to translate different things because, non Godigan, Pitag Zewin, on it Kedwinin, Gom, Wabak, Chowie, and this Totowat or the Kedwin. So sometimes there's a word, something that's valued today, but in the future, nobody even cares about it. It doesn't even matter. So why bother? Like, what's those one little players they used to have? Like not MP3 players, that too, I guess. But there were those big discs they used to have and put them in. There've been all kinds of little technological innovations over the years that just didn't stick. MIDI players and all that stuff. And you're like, oh, I don't need John Nedwin Desin da kid or the kid when I don't know how to say that word, don't want to know how to say that word. But just Miquin demuk win pennet gishpin gabagijik gamagijik ebisido yin or the zeshmone yo yin or the zeshmon megwaj. It becomes easier, if you're hearing it all day, every day, or even if you're thinking about it, it gets easier. It really does. Got gish get waja edoki yin mina paneshishna bodewad mim when enendaman. So one day you'll wake up and that's what you'll be thinking about. You'll be thinking in Potawatomi. You'll just be like, oh, okay. And you kind of, epich ebmoseyan ebmadzian. I don't know who this is. I don't know what's saying. Oh, hang up on me. Yep, that was simple.
How do we say, how do you say?
Nija, there's a couple ways you can say it. Nija da kidyan. Nija da kidyan. That's how would you say Nija, and then you'd say the word like Nija da, I'll write it up here. Nija da kidyan. Da means could or should. Kid. Yeah, that's marked with a poor choice. Nija da kidyan. How would you say it? The other way that you can say is Nija kadomga. How is it said? Nija kadomga. Let me write it. Let me get a better color pen here. Real quick. Here.
Can you put that down for me?
Yes. So, so, or another one you can say is Nija Kadom get. Kadomga. Nija Kadomga. Nija means how. Kadom means is the verb to say, and Maget means it. So this one here literally means how is it said? So how is it said? Whatever. TV. This one here, Nija, how could or should you say whatever? So Nija Dakidjan iron. How would you say iron? Josh Quagan, how would you say ribbon? Nija Dakidjan ribbon, Zinba. Nija Dakidjan clock, debut gispan, So that's how that would work out. But Nija Dakidjan or Nija Kadomguk, whichever one you like. There. 50-50 for me on that. I mean, I've always used this one a lot, but I know this one too, so. Wegwindick, Ned Windeman, Ayoyan, whatever you want to use. It's good by me. So, Nan Godigan, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, Winet Shana, Miigwech. So, Nan Godigan, Getchwajana, Chamokman Moen, or Jack Shigago, Ebisadoyan, or the Chamokman Moen, Gishpin, Maji Bedoyan, Wab no Takshigan, Ntano, Chamokman Moen, Mina Ginovich, Miago Moen. So when you turn, English is all around us. When you turn the TV on, you're going to hear English or maybe Spanish, but that's pretty much it. No, only. Well, I guess occasionally there's some other ones, but show unless you go to my YouTube channel, then you might get some Bodewad Mimwin stuff. But other than that, you're not going to hear a lot of part on me. Mina Gishpin no Takshigan and Maji Bedoyan. When you turn on the radio, Mtano Chamokman Moen. You're only going to hear English, So, non-Godigan neen, nida Mikwindan, Dakid Jan, Moshuk, and then the man Bodewad Mimwin. Sometimes I forget or I don't remember that I can say just about anything I want in Potawatomi because it's all around you. And it's just kind of like beating down on you. It's like the radio, the signs, everything's in English. That's why Megwa Ebisidoyan, Megwa Ewabdaman, Winaksha. The more you see it, the more you hear it, the better. That's why it's important for us, to put it on like the stop signs, gosh, and to put dual signage up because it kind of kicks your mind back and reminds you, oh yeah, duh, I could have said that in Potawatomi. There's so many things that you realize that you could have said in Potawatomi, but you have to constantly kind of keep yourself in check with that. Like for myself, it's been about patterns, If I gishbin nakeno nak penoljayak nishkatoyan ekkedyan biawi snek biawi snen Beknesia Ned Windeman. Gosh, can I bag when it? So with my kids, I'll talk to them and I'll say things like, come eat, be a wee snick, or be a wee snin, come eat to one of them. Or I'll say something like, gosh, can I bag when it? Are you thirsty? Sounds like a mouthful, but my kids, they spit it out. So I'm guaranteeing you guys can spit it out too. The gosh, can I bag when? That's the verb. So, gosh, can I bag when it? Gosh, can I bag when? Are you thirsty? Konage or cho. And I tell my kids, I'll be like, na didn't eat wish kebabo. Grab me a pop. Na didn't eat wish kebabo. No, go the kom kakos. No, grab me a wish kebabo. And miigwech.
One more question.
Eh.
I just asked you, how do you say Jida Kedin?
Nijida Kidyan. Nijida.
Now say, why do you say?
Nijawi Kidyan. No, Nijawi. Nijawi is why. Did you write it down?
I just wrote it down.
Oh, that's probably my poor handwriting. Started to slip down. That's me. Well, I'm glad we fixed that. Early. I tell you, sometimes my handwriting slip. Gisa nendum miji nebiage. Sorry about my poor handwriting. So
You say, need your P again? What do you say?
when would you say? Yeah, when do you say? Yeah, need your P. Exactly. That's how it works. You learn those parts and you can just start putting other words with them and changing out your question words. Jia is a good one. I should have done up there. Jia is the verb to go. So if I said Nipija wajiayin wabuk, what am I saying? Nipija wajiayin wabuk. I'll say it a few times, just kind of let it listen to it. Nipija wajiayin wabuk. Nipija wajiayin wabuk. Let me slow it down even more. Where are you going tomorrow? Nipija. Nipija.
Tomorrow, right?
Yep, and see, you're getting a little bit more each time you're hearing it. And that's what it takes. You know, your ears got to get used to it. But Nipija is the where, wa, the future, wa, jia. We didn't do future up here with these. Yeah, no. Wa, jia, the verb, yin, you, and then wa buck. So you're hearing the wa buck at the end, and you got the where. Yeah. So Nipija, wa, jia, yin, wa buck. Now, if I said Nipija, gajia, wat, na go. Nipija, gajia, wat, na go. Nipija. There it is. You were close. You were close. I switched it a little bit. I double switched it on you. I went to the past, but you're right about the they. Yeah. So Nipija, ga, past, jia, wat. Did they go? Nago yesterday. You were very close, and then you helped out. That's good. So Nipija, gajia, wat, nago. Nipija, gajia, wat, nago. What if I said? Nipija jiayin, Dwight. Nipija jiayin, Dwight. Nipija ejia. That E just like ejiayin. Where are you going? Yeah, just presently, like where are you going? Nipija ejiayin. I could just use without the I could say Nipija jiayin. I don't like the way that sounds. Nipija ejiayin. That's how I'd usually say it. So Nipija ejiayin. That E is just kind of like the facts, or it's a fact, or it's kind of a present tense marker. It's kind of a pseudo marker. So there's some of that stuff out there. Like you got these like emphatics, like the shishanas and the shish. You hear me use that a lot of times. Like I'll say, oh, pane shishana. That shishana. They're kind of hard to translate, those little parts. They're kind of like, we call them emphatics or emphasizers, and certain things in Pali are a little bit dicey to try to exactly kind of tell you what they are, but they just make things like with the shanas and shishanas, they just kind of make things flow a little better, and sometimes they really add oomph to it. Like I'm like, ket nam janag jatim get zagach. Shongong.
When I watched the video of talking about reservation notes.
You like Kimanagwindane?
Yes.
Okay, Manette.
When I watched that, when you guys were talking, like when you're talking now. when
It was on our for the rest of them, in case they didn't see it, it's a video we made, me and Randy, that we put on our Facebook page.
If you haven't seen it, it's worth watching.
A little skit, it was funny.
But what I noticed in it, how you guys are speaking there. When you're speaking now, your voice rises. Like you're emphasizing words differently than when you were speaking with them.
That's probably the teacher in me, honestly. I'm just trying to really precisely hear it, you know. But you're right. If I just keep fast, like, that's just probably a byproduct of that, honestly. I'm used to really emphasizing them with people. Because a lot of speakers you'll hear talk, sometimes they almost don't open their mouths real wide. That's hard sometimes if you're not used to the language. It's kind of like this. Yeah, I said but you know, so as a teacher, I have a tendency to. No, we don't go up. No.
On that video, you guys stayed like, the things that I would emphasize that you were saying.
Yeah.
I would think,
See, a lot of times we don't. We just.
right.
Yeah, and honestly, it's one of those things that, if anything is the hardest thing to kick, is probably those kind of things. Like I'll slip on that every once in a while, where I'll come up. Like when you ask a simple question, like, "Are you hungry?" You shouldn't go gabaktane. It shouldn't be like that. It should be gabaktane. It's actually coming down. Gabaktane, and that's a very hard to kick sometimes. And sometimes that gets lost when you get real, like I get real anime when I really get going. When I really get going, like if I'm really like, if I'm talking to somebody that I really know, I'll start talking pretty fast, and I'll usually get real. I enjoy it. I like talking Pali, so I really get into it, and sometimes it's just like, yeah, I'm just. That's just my personality, really. That's not telling you need to be all jumping around all the time. I find that for myself, I'm a very I tend to talk with my hands a lot. Some people may not, but I naturally do that. Even in English, I tend to talk with my hands. I mean, it's just something I do. So when Gishpan Anishinaabe Moyan, Eyoyan, Nechi Yan Nan Godigan. So sometimes I'm using my hands when I'm talking Potawatomi. So, it's a hard, so those little things, yeah. But talking to Randy, Wegwindek,
It flowed so much better when you guys were on that video.
Yeah.
I picked up so many more words, how you were saying, than versus some of the stuff that you're teaching today, that you're excited about.
yeah.
You're going this way, and if you're in you're more like this.
Well, I Metsana, Nishketon, Mono Nishnabbe Moyan. I try to talk more monotone. Nishnabbe. That's okay. Yeah. But like I said, it's just, you're going to hear it in all those ways, though. I mean, you're going to hear, you got to also realize me and Randy were scripted too. We had a script. That might be part of it too. Like, if we were just free flowing, you should check out, there's a video on here where me and Randy talked for about an hour. It's on our Facebook group. You may have to go down a ways down to find it, but there's one on there where me and Randy just talked for like an hour. And it's completely off the cuff. Like, I'm asking different things about his kids and what he's been up to, and it's not scripted in any manner of the way, and sometimes even if I think he doesn't understand me, I'll circle back and use a different verb, or I'll change up the way that I say things. Cause that's something that I've learned to do over the years is, no, I haven't done that, but I guess that would be a good activity. Yeah. When it's been caption K on, if I captioned it. Hey, that's something I've heard some speakers do before. Like, they'll joke around. Sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, no, we lunge, Olman. Gonna go eat lunch. Lunge more." Or charger with tone. I'm gonna plug the charger with tone. Charge with tone. They'll kind of slur them together. It's really kind of funny. Yeah. But I could. I'll see if I can find that link and bring it at least to the top where you can see it again. But it was a nice little bit. And I have something like that with Don, actually. When Don used to work for us many years ago, I spent a lot of time, I would just go in there and interview. And what I did was I'd interview him in Potawatomi. So I'd ask him, "We demotion Bagagia Yalyan, tell me about yourself." And he'd be like, "What? Weknesia Mikwindaman Netum Gos. What do you remember first about your dad, like growing up? Tell me, we demotion Bagagia, tell me a little bit." And we talked about just different topics. We talked about the economy once. It was pretty entertaining, and we kind of go back and forth, and it was good because it was borderline scripted in the sense of we had a topic. So that way you at least knew where we were at. Like, we weren't just all over the place. So like we were talking about the economy. You knew that because we said, "Hey, what do you think about the economy? What do you think about?" And we, coined a word for talking about the economy and things like that. And, or we were talking about the weather, or talking about whatever. And so you kind of knew the category of where you're, and that's the best case scenario, when you have a general category. Zeneget Gishpen Anishinaabe Moyan, Wegwindek, and Nindaman. It is definitely harder for you to understand when I just talk from my mind. Okay. But it's also a little more challenging, but it's also good for you because people aren't going to just stick to a script. You know what I mean? Like, I can say, "Hey, Bojo, need you now." But you say that, now do this again. Bojo. Say Bojo. Ho. Need you now? Need you now? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Need you now? It's a, yeah, the Mets not. Just say, "I don't know." The Mets not. All I'm trying to say is, the point I'm trying to make, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I apologize. But what I was trying to get at is, we get used to these certain ways of doing it. Bama P, Bama Mina, but I might say Skajimia. I might say Nagech for later. I might say Ho, instead of Bojo to you. And you might ask me how I'm doing. I might be like, Yabia this scum, Bagaji. A little bit lazy today. I'm not going to always say like, but that's the thing about kind of getting used to. And sometimes I'll admit to you, sometimes I think I sometimes allow myself to be that way with people because I'm trying to help them too much. Because there are some times where I know a person doesn't know a word and I choose not to use a certain word. I know a different word I can use and I choose that because I know they know it. And so as I get better, I'm going to throw more words they don't know, but I have to sometimes watch myself I guess it's not really simplifying it, but it's not giving you the easy way out every time. And it really depends the person because you want to keep people engaged and keep people learning, but you want to challenge them, but you don't want to bury them, or drown them, So it's a borderline, We want to, when it's not gishpen kitnam jana nishna by moya nesha when it's not gishpen when pengadam get non gorigan. I want to talk really talk Potawatomi, but I also want to make it easy sometimes. So what were you saying? Kind of agreeing. Okay, I'm sorry. I kind of missed the thought and went on another tangent. But so yeah, I mean, I think you would enjoy that one with Randy. And I've got another one with Don that's pretty good that I do have transcribed out where Don was talking about at a conference. He was talking about things like his school days and stuff like that. And I have it captioned in Potawatomi, and I've actually got it now captioned, I believe, in English. I've been recaptioning some of my stuff. Today, when we do stuff in the language department, I try to caption in English and caption in Potawatomi. That way, depending on what kind of area you're at in your language learning, it helps you. So if you're kind of maybe not certain about it, maybe you want to watch the English caption, and then maybe you're getting a little better with it and you want to really see what those words were, then you can watch the Potawatomi caption. I've learned that's the best way to go about it. And so that's what I kind of do these days. We do a caption in English, caption in Potawatomi. And I found it to be pretty useful. So some of the stuff I've done early on, I went back and I've been recaptioning in English to use with our high school course and stuff like that. And so you'll see some of those little skits from time to time. But we're always working on like cartoons. And if you get on our YouTube channel, you should really check out. There's two of them. There's one more geared to adults. There's some stuff on there, like there's Night of the Living Dead. It's an hour-long movie. It's in Potawatomi. It's captioned in English, captioned in Potawatomi. It's the entire movie. It's in public domain. We can do that. There's a Gulliver's Travels that this one lady told me that she used it with her kids. Like she had an agreement with her kids. They had to do 30 minutes of Potawatomi every day. And their kid really liked watching Gulliver's Travels. And he would just, he would kick out a bunch of the phrases like, Jock one at all's well, Jock one at, because the guy's walking around with his lantern, all's well. But it's the old Gulliver's Travel tale. And, where the guy washes up on the island, but it's like an hour and 20-minute cartoon. It's all in Potawatomi. And there's lots of them. We got a 30-minute, 25-minute episode, I think it's called, which I don't think it's up on YouTube now. I ran into a dang copyright thing with it. I'm going to have to work my way around it. But I had Don Knotts, Mayberry's one that was Loaded Goat that we did in Potawatomi. And then they hit me. Copyright's funky. They can copyright stuff on the music. They can copyright. There's all kinds of ways to copyright stuff. And so I was like, they got me on the harmonica he was playing, like for real, really? That's copyright? I'm like, okay, whatever. Anyway, so it's not up there right now, but I'm trying to find a way to rework it where I can put it back up. But we have like some Superman cartoons, 10-minute little cartoons, Popeye the Sailor that are in public domain. We did a Woody Woodpecker. That's about 10 minutes long. I think we're going to do House on Haunted Hill eventually because it's in public domain. It's a pretty good horror flick. I want to do It's a Wonderful Life, but it was in public domain. Then they found a way. It was in public domain for like 20, 30 years. Then they found a way to get it out of public domain and it's just a game that these executives play, and they got teams of lawyers. I was like, whatever. I wish that we had the right as Indigenous people to just put it in our language, no matter what, as long as we're not monetarily making money off it. But it's not the way it works. They don't care. They're going to stop you. I even have my wife. I told my wife about. I've written different studios trying to get things like, okay, put this in our language and yada yada yada. And my wife wrote Disney, and they wrote her back, oh, we appreciate you taking into consideration our permissions, but we're not, unless basically we're not going to allow that to happen unless we basically control all aspects of it. And on some levels, I understand they want a certain level of like they don't want their stuff being jinky. But on the flip side of it, like I don't care if it's the most recent thing that came out. You can give me something from 30 years ago. It's newer than the stuff I'm using from 80 years. I'm using stuff from the 40s in public domain. So I'm cool with something from the 50s, the 60s.
Which factions on your TV?
Yeah.
It's right there.
But it's just that's why it's unfair. I consider that, I feel like that's a fair use lawsuit argument, but not one that I'm prepared to make. So I don't have I'm not ready to make that my own. So, but in the meantime, like there's tribes that have got Berenstain Bears put in Potawatomi, or not Potawatomi, Lakota. I was like, wow. And I found the people that did that, and I'm just trying to work that angle, see if I can get them to let us do Berenstain Bears. That'd be cool. But yeah, Megwa Odajeshmon, Ebisadoyan, Megwa Wajanistatoyan, Megwa Yoyan, Winakshana. The more that you hear it, the more you're gonna understand it, the more you use it, the better it's gonna be. You know, Win Pengadet. It's easy. It really is. It's not as hard as you have to think in that terms. That's what I'm trying to say. I know don't think of it as complicated. Think of it as like, it's easy peasy. Because I'm telling you right now, we kind of set up barriers in our minds. If you tell yourself like, I can't do this. Well, guess what? You're going to self-fulfill that prophecy. Eventually you won't. But if you tell yourself, no, man, I'm going to learn my language. It might take me 8 years. It might take me 10 years. Hey, it might take me 20 years, but I'm going to get it. Eventually, if you keep plotting along, you will get more and more and more. And that's the thing about it. This is a Nadzoan. This is a way of life. This is a Anishinaabe Nadzoan. This is our native Potawatomi way of life. It's not something, I'm gonna bitch got kinomage when ebiayan, nish kinomage when egibiayan. It's not I went to one class, I went to 2 classes, I went to this, or odanke gijgok ebisidoyan bodewadmi. I listened to my Potawatomi on Saturday. Oh, that's cool. No. Game gijik gidoki inishnabam. Every day that I wake up, I use Potawatomi. You should make that kind of commitment to yourself. And you don't have to make it to everybody. You can talk to your dog. Your dog ain't going to criticize you. You can talk to your plants. They might appreciate hearing the language. They might grow better for you. You can talk to Mama Ghostan, the creator, all alone, just you and the creator. And that's how I feel when I get up and pray. Anyway, I always think to myself, I used to get real nervous early on getting up and doing these big invocations for meetings, things. And then there were 2 things that I came to realize that my wife helped me realize. I appreciate that if you're listening. Not that she probably is, but that one of them was that, number one, 99.9% of these people aren't going to understand you. Probably all of them. I mean, but and the other side is this between you and the creator. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? It really is. It has nothing to do. Yeah, these other people are here. Yes, I care for them. Yes, I'm praying for them. I want things that are good for them. No madzwin. Kawabim, Yaknoge, Penoge, Kekyajik, and watch over our elders, our children, those that are sick. Yes, I want all these things for our people, but just like a conversation between me and Mama Gosnan, just talking to them. And you can do that yourselves. I mean, if you want to get up in the morning and put a little tobacco down and say, hey, Nijok Meshin, Waja Ekendashan Odazeshman, help me so that I can learn this language. Nijok Meshin, Ekendashan Odazeshman, so that I can learn this language. Or just Nijok Meshin, help me. And you never know. He might answer. He or she. Yeah. Mamo Gosnan. Might just answer you. But yeah, I guess we're almost out of time here, but we can so yeah, going forward, this is kind of what I'm hoping for. I want you guys to be as much a part of the process of where we go with this as I am. I mean, everybody, Jayak, Majik, Bakan Kendaswat, Jeshmoan, everybody learns language different, And so, Ginabich, Got Gijget, Medagwin, Gishpin, Ewabjaget, Gaggle. I mean, one person really likes it when he can see it. Got Mamajik, Medagwin, Gishpin, Ebisadot. One person really enjoys it if they can hear it. On it, Mamajik, Medagwindam, what, Gishpin, Kiktoat. Some people, they really like it if they're talking it. And we can work with you guys as comfort level, whatever that comfort level is. If it's, hey, I'd like to say a few things. I like to try some stuff. We can do some scripted out stuff too. I think those are good. It makes people not feel as on the spot. You know what I mean? Because it is a little intimidating if you're on the spot, you're like, oh crap. And then it's like, what is that laugh? What's that thing I was thinking? And I want everyone to feel comfortable. I want you guys to feel good about it. I want you to walk away thinking, man, get to Jesh Momona. I really like learning our language. I enjoy it. I like it. It's fun, you know?
Actually, I'm not really on the, you put me on the spot because I'm trying to think and trying to translate in my head just to get it out, and it's not fast enough.
Hey, and that's part of the process too, because you have to understand, like as a child, when we first hear language, you didn't just, kids aren't at 3 months like, hey, how are you doing? There's a reason, because they're just listening. They're taking it all in. They're registering it. They're putting it in there. They're kind of figuring out where it goes in their mind. They're putting the patterns together. That's why we have to do the patterns, because as a child, you would have naturally learned the patterns and you would have heard them, but we have to just memorize the patterns because we didn't get them as a child, but they're still, you can memorize them. You can learn them. You can get them real good and really know them, and it'll help you as you advance. But it's, you know, again, you may not be ready to talk in the language for a while, and that's okay. It doesn't bother me. I like to talk and listen to myself. No, not really, but I enjoy using the language and hearing the language. And if it's going to help you, I think it's beneficial, I think, and I think it will. Megwa, Ebisidoyan, Nodajeshmon, Megwa, and Nistadoyan. The more you hear it, the more you understand it. Megwa, Eyoyan, the more you use it. Winnikshana, that's a good thing. So the number one thing is to be patient with yourself. We're our own hardest critics. We all think that we should be fluent in 3 months or fluent in 6 months or 10 years or whatever. We have a number, we have an idea. And it's unrealistic. We have a lifetime. You have your entire life, you know. You have your whole life to learn the language. But but let's start today. You know, but don't feel pressured. And the other thing is, I hope you never feel pressured with me, because if you say something to me, it brings me joy. I like to hear people talk home. If you say something to me, even if something you pulled out of the dictionary and you're not 100% sure, I enjoy that. I'm like, okay, cool. Or here's something I haven't heard somebody say that to me in a while. Huh? Cool. You know, I love it. So if you feel like just throwing a phrase out of the blue, by all means do. Put me on the spot. I like it. I enjoy being on the spot.
Blueberry pie.
Oh yeah, that's because they make it too hard. It's so much easier than that for us. It's just men bito gishquagan. But in Ojibwa, it's like 1,000 words. But they do make a solid point in Ojibwa, and that is that it does change. It's blueberry, then there's apple, and you're going to have to know the different things to change the pie, because it's not just pie. You know, it's a blueberry pie. It's this pie. It is funny because they always bring that word up as the longest word in Ojibwa or whatever, and I always laugh. I always think to myself, man, those Ojibwa, they just make such long words. Because all of our words, I mean, like all the oohs and ahs, that's all so unnecessary. Like if I say to you, you know, come inside, you know, I'd say beat again. So for us, it's beat again. For them, it's bean again. So they got like an extra N in here, and then leave an extra sound in here. Oh, that's just so unnecessary. We got beat again. Bam.
Are you gonna do any winter stories or anything like that?
Oh yeah. I intend to. This year, I'm hoping that we can do them live. That's my plan. The plan is to do them live. We can just spread out as far as we need to. We have a big room in here. We can put 2 people to a table and spread y'all all the way to the walls. You know, I think we can do it. So that's my plan. Yeah, hopefully by February, everybody will be well on their way to getting better with this thing. Hopefully we'll get around it. But yeah, it's Zinegit. What up, mob doing? This life is hard sometimes. Not in Godigan, but we'll make it. We just got to keep on keeping on. So, well, that's probably good for a day. I appreciate Miigwech, Jayak, Ebisidoyuk, Kionadze, Nindaman. Thank y'all for listening to my crazy thoughts. And hopefully, Bado Ikin, get a kindasam on it or bodewad mi mungo. And I hope that you learned a little something today.